In a recent interview with Empire magazine, Steven Spielberg discussed working on Interstellar before leaving the project after a year, a move which ended well as it ultimately led to Christopher Nolan taking over. But it got us thinking, what would a Steven Spielberg Interstellar movie have been like? And what other high-profile filmmakers have left projects? And was it good or bad for the final product? So with that being said, let's take 15 minutes and talk about movie exits. Anyway, Sam, we are going to be talking about this. Did you read this story at all? Did you see
I did.
What it was? Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of chit-chat with Empire.
He has. He's been going back and forwards. And one of the topics of conversation that he had was around Interstellar and how he spent a year on it. Did you read this? He spent a year. He went to like a physics institute and he kind of worked out what was going on in space. And he did like a lot of like research into this. He was quite heavily involved for a good 12 months. He departed obviously because of, like life and not creative differences, but life differences, I suppose. I wanted to be more at home and he couldn't necessarily commit to that much time to it. But it sounded like he spent a decent amount, a chunk of time on it. So I suppose, what do you reckon? Would it have been a good movie with Steven Spielberg? What type of movie would Interstellar have been?
It's a hard thing to say, really, because obviously the final product is so acclaimed. I think it would have probably suited Spielberg a bit more because it's kind of schmaltzy and family orientated. I don't love Interstellar. I think you do, don't you? You think it's one of his Nolan's better films.
So I think it's. I think I like it more than a lot of people, but then I also think that I've come to appreciate it with the more viewings I've had of it. So because I've just been exposed to it more, it's just one of the films that I just really enjoy. I like what he's done with it. I think it is arguably, I think it's a more seminal piece of sci-fi than I do, a human. Because Nolan's famously come out about this and said this is he made Interstellar, at least the story around Interstellar and the characters. He made this because of the criticisms around his work being cold in the past, and so he looked to do the stuff around our main characters and the relationship between Matthew McConaughey and his daughter and stuff like that throughout the film is his kind of response to that type of criticism. But yeah, I like it. I think Steven Spielberg version of this I find really hard to not see, go back to his really early stuff.
Yeah. It could have fallen into an E.T.
Yeah,
vibe.
I don't know why. I can't think about it.
Close Encounters more, actually.
Yeah, particularly when you look at the robot and stuff like that he brings in when Matt Damon's character's in it as well.
I feel like to perfectly encapsulate it, I think Interstellar needs a bit of Nolan.
Yeah.
But other aspects definitely needed a bit of Steven Spielbergios.
Do you reckon it would have been a bit more fantastical in that sense? Because they do. I think that's one of the things is that Spielberg did a really good job at marrying sci-fi with fantasy.
Yeah.
And that is even down to things like what he did with Jurassic Park, right? So there's an element of fantasy to what he does, which then makes it would have been a very different vibe.
Yes. It creates curiosity, but I don't think it'll die away because I think the final product of Interstellar is very, very good.
Yeah.
It's not like the Solo film where there's this constant, particularly with Lord and Miller.
Yeah.
Continuing to thrive and do well. Phil
Lord
Lord and Christopher Miller. Yeah. So no, I think it's because obviously it's Spielberg and it's a very famous film from the 2010s, and Spielberg's obviously very famous, particularly early on in his career, for science fiction. But I suppose it's one of those. It's probably the best soundbite from his interview.
Yeah. It's definitely the one that's got the most traction because I originally read this on IGN, but I think it was from Empire magazine, and I think The Verge picked it up. So I think everyone's picked up this whole conversation around it. So I think a lot of people thought this was an original Nolan thing. But it wasn't. Spielberg worked on this and Jonathan Nolan wrote the script for it. And then because Spielberg dropped out, Chris was like, well, because obviously I'm on first name basis with him.
Yeah.
Chris Nolan was just like, no, I'm doing that. Like 100%. He just like tagged onto it. So technically, this was a Jonathan Nolan thing before it was a Christopher Nolan thing.
Yeah.
I think that was what the interesting thing is about from like a soundbite side point of view. I think it's really interesting because I don't think you can necessarily go down the route of would it have been better or worse or something like that. I think it would have been fundamentally different.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. But you raise a really interesting point. So that's what we're going to talk about next. That's basically the whole point of why we're doing this Let's Talk About It. Other movies with higher profile exits. There have been few. There have been a few of these over the last few years, right? Edgar Wright, Ant-Man. You mentioned Lord of Miller solo movie. Guillermo del Toro was supposed to do a Hobbit movie. Tim Miller was supposed to come back for Deadpool 2. Danny Boyle was supposed to do No Time to Die. Ben Affleck's Batman movie. Patty Jenkins was supposed to do Thor: The Dark World. Darren Aronofsky was down to do Wolverine 2. And stuff like that. So there's been like lots and lots. This list at the moment, you can literally go into different like facets of, say, like actors walking away from projects and that as well. But I've stuck with filmmakers with a lot of this because I think it's like a really interesting vibe and tone that you can get from this stuff. Which are the biggest movies out of that list that I've given you there that we are massively disappointed we didn't get?
Del Toro with The Hobbit.
Do you think that's more disappointing than Lord and Miller solo movie?
Yeah, I think so. Because The Hobbit is, I mean, obviously the Lord of the Rings trilogy is so iconic.
Yeah.
And I think based on because at the end of the day, we can only base it on how these films turned out. I think The Hobbit could have probably used a fresh voice.
Yeah.
And obviously Peter Jackson coming back, you get this sort of the same. It's not as bad as sort of like the aspect of the prequels, Star Wars prequels, in terms of like how fundamentally they changed, and because the filmmaker who sort of harnessed the masterpieces, so to speak, had changed. I think Del Toro would have just given that sort of like fresh impetus to it. But I mean, yeah, there's Lord and Miller is more of an interesting one because of their careers since Solo and how Star Wars has kind of declined since.
Yeah. Well, someone told me that apparently like Project Hail Mary and stuff is like
That's
a
hilarious.
direct response to what a solo movie would have been.
Yes.
So like there's a lot there where you're just kind of like, well, actually they kind of did it. It's the same as like Nolan with Bond movies. Like he didn't get the creative control that he wanted to, so he went off and made Tenet. So it's like, you know, there's so much stuff there where you're like, actually it would be good. I think as well, like a big one was Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. I think that's a shame that we never saw an Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. But do you think in a weird way now it's oddly justified why we don't have it because unfortunately the Running Man?
I don't know. It's really hard to say because so much time has passed between these films.
Because Ant-Man is arguably, that's now, like, people like that.
I was always a big fan of the first Ant-Man. I mean, the other two are basically, like, redundant. But the first one's good fun. It does have enough of that Edgar Wright panache. Yeah. He is still involved. He just obviously didn't direct it.
Because it's mostly his story, right?
It's mostly his story. He still produced it, I think, and he's got story by it.
Okay.
But, I mean, yeah. What's your favourite, like, in terms of, like, that would have affected your feeling towards the film in like a big way?
It's a really weird one. I think the ones I suppose that I was probably most invested in, where I would like actually would have been interesting to see that. Tim Miller's Deadpool 2, I think would have been more interesting than it got. I didn't like Deadpool 2.
Well, Tim Miller was making Terminator.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Dark Fate.
But then he did Deadpool 1. Deadpool 1 was good. He walked away from Deadpool 2 because of creative differences with Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
So from that standpoint, we know that it wasn't because there was another project on the horizon. So I think it's a shame that we didn't see an evolution, because weirdly for me, Deadpool feels quite kind of indie guerrilla filmmaking in a weird sense. Like, it's still got a big budget and stuff, but like they didn't have a lot of money, and they kind of made a big deal about it not having a lot of money. And so because of that, I think that's why we ended up with like a really interesting movie. And Ed Skrine's really good in it, or Shrine, I can't remember pronounce his name. Yeah. But he's a good villain, and I like the fact that it kind of suited a Deadpool movie, where it's like, well, we don't have the funds to pull this off. As soon as Deadpool got more money, it then became a bit of a weird pastiche of itself. But it's like, you know, I would have quite liked to see that. I would have really liked to see a Patty Jenkins Thor: The Dark World, because we all know how Thor: The Dark World kind of fell out. Because I think she wanted to do more of like a Romeo and Juliet thing with Thor and
Well, Patty Jenkins also was tied to do the what is now the Starfighter film. I'm assuming.
No, so this would have been about the time she did Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman 1, 1984
Yeah.
wasn't like great, but then she would have done like Thor Dark World. What was that? 2012, 2013, something like that.
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
So it was around that time anyway. And I would have really been interested to see a Ben Affleck the Batman as well.
Yeah, well, you're a big fan of Ben Affleck.
I liked him as Batman, but then I must admit, I loved the Batman, Pattinson's Batman. I thought it was a fantastic movie. So I think in a weird way we kind of weirdly dodged a bullet. I think he dodged a bullet more than audiences dodged a bullet. Because I still think Ben Affleck, I've always said it, Ben Affleck is a better director than he is an actor. And so because of that, I would have been interested to see that movie. But, that's it. One of the things that I did want to ask you about, though, Danny Boyle's No Time to Die.
Yeah. Would have almost certainly been better than what we got. Wouldn't have been.
Did you not like No Time to Die?
It was too long.
Okay.
It was like 2 hours and 40 minutes. No Bond film needs to be that long.
Did you like the end?
No, I hated the end.
Okay.
But well, actually saying that, it ages better every day because it does feel like Bond, as we know it, is kind of over. So it was weirdly fitting in the end. At the time, I was just like, no, James Bond can't die. This is a bull. But I mean, we'll see. But yeah, Danny Boyle doing a Bond film would have been very interesting.
Wouldn't it? He was on the project for a long time, if I remember.
He was on the project for. Are you sure it was No Time to Die or Spectre? I feel like he was also tied with Spectre, wasn't he?
He was tied to the Bond franchise.
Yeah. No, you are right. Because that was. I think Sam Mendes was trying to leave.
Oh, okay.
I think he hated the whole process of Spectre.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Star Wars has a lot. I mean, David Lynch was apparently tied to Return of the Jedi, and then obviously they've had so many misses in the last 7-8 years with Taika Waititi, the Rian Johnson trilogy. So yeah, they're probably the biggest biggest example.
Yeah, I know, but I suppose this is more of big not these are more definitive exits. Do you know what I mean? Whereas a lot of the Star Wars stuff has just been they were rumoured to be a part of it.
Oh no,
there wasn't many treatments. I mean, I think the closest one was probably the Rian Johnson thing is a good, interesting one because I know he basically had some treatments for stuff. He kind of knew what he wanted to do, and then Abrams came in and just went no. So yeah, it's really interesting from that front. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that we might have missed, any big ones that we would have missed or proper high profile ones, but they're just some of the ones that I wanted to highlight.
When we go to bed tonight, we'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So are there any there? So we've obviously said the ones that we really want to miss. Is there anywhere we kind of go, that's good, we missed that?
Oh God.
Dodged a bullet there.
Well, again, but kind of back. Well, I don't know. It's still bad. Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. I think that to me is the biggest.
I mean, what kind of nightmare from already a nightmare?
Honestly, if that man still has a career, I don't get it. I mean, even his stuff that he tried to do outside of blockbuster filmmaking, Book of Henry. Bad movie, man. Bad. Have you seen Book of Henry? No. I think I've ranted about this on another one of our episodes before. Yeah, but the Book of Henry is just terrible. I remember sitting in a press screening for that, and I'm just watching it, just going, I really hope I'm not the only person who fucking hates this. It was tragic. It was not a good movie. And then obviously, he follows it up with Jurassic Park. Terrible. Jurassic Park.
It's a good film, that.
Terrible 3. and all that stuff. And I really hope he doesn't come out of the woodwork with something else. So yeah. No, but that's a good list. Anyway, despite Spielberg walking away, I'm pretty confident that things turned out for the best. Interstellar is arguably one of the most important sci-fi movies of the century, and you could arguably say it wouldn't have existed without Spielberg departing the project. So I think we're all winners in the end for that one. Anyway, let us know your thoughts. Do you think a Spielberg Interstellar movie would have been any good? Let us know in the comments below. But for now, take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.